Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
The best dog that I hunted more and understood more and everything was probably old Ruff.
Okay.
And he was the sorriest reproducer that I ever had.
Well, since you said he was the best dog you ever had, what was a good hunt you had with Ruff? I just saw a picture of Ruff baying a bear. I was doing some research.
Used him. I used to hunt for a living, and I took him every day.
Okay.
People would come from everywhere to watch him fight a bobcat. He would bay a bear, and he saved me a lot of times. A bear would be about to get me, and he'd go in, grab it with the rear end, turn it around.
Good deal.
I guess about the funniest story I can remember, I was hunting an old boy that had a bow and arrow, and he shot all his arrows into the bear, and the old bear just reached around and get him and spit him out. Handed that bow to his uncle. He had a little short uncle with him, and he hung it around his neck, and he had a camera. He was taking a movie of all that. The bear, he had that around his neck, and the bear come off of the hill and run right up his face. He didn't know how close he was looking through that camera, and he turned around and run. Got hung between two trees, and it was just playing with him backwards and forth. That bow had him and strung up. He was screaming. The bear was right on him, and Ruff grabbed the bear, and it sat down, and the bear's back was touching the man. And he looked around, all he could see was fur. He looked like he was wearing a fur coat.
That's funny.
And that guy handed him the bow, had a pistol he was shooting it with. Finally, he got it killed, and that man called me everything, like I said, but a country gentleman. and I had this lay down life.
What's he mad at you for? He couldn't hit the bear with a bow very well, and then put the bow down to take a video. That ain't your fault.
No, but I was supposed to save him, I reckon.
Well, your dog did, so it's all right.
Yeah, that story was in our yearbooks somewhere floating around. I hadn't seen it in a lot of years, but that was a pretty good story, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no, that's funny. So, well, let's introduce you since after that. So, I'm here tonight with Robert Kemmer. Robert Kemmer is the founder of the Kemmer Mountain Cur and the Kemmer Breeders Association. How are you doing tonight, Robert?
I'm doing great for old man.
So, you heard my last podcast with Daryl Fry, and your daughter actually sent me a message with your phone number. So that's how we got hooked up. And what'd you think of that last podcast?
I liked it, and glad to hear old Daryl's voice. He sounds just like he did 30 years ago, and I'm glad to hear him.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I mean, I just called him out of the blue. Was curious about his dogs, so kind of sprung it on him. So I'm glad that you liked it and you thought it did your dog some justice. So we'll even give him a little bit more of a platform here tonight, and we'll find out a little bit more about him.
Okay. Old Daryl's been a really big help to this breed of dogs. So he's known worldwide what a hunter he is.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to get my breed of dogs in people's hands like him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can imagine. I mean, I've only raised a couple litters of puppies, and that's always my objective, is to get them into the hands of people that are going to hunt them. And there's been a few that it's, like I said, I've only raised literally a couple litters, and I'm giving puppies away to people that I know will hunt them, and my wife's like, "What are you doing? You got money wrapped up in all this." And I'm like, "Doesn't matter." I said, "I want them dogs hunted. That's what matters."
Yeah. I tell everybody there's three things that'll make a dog or ruin a dog, and a lot of people don't like that statement. And that's the handler, the handler, the handler.
You're not wrong, because I know that
They can make them or break them.
Because that statement's been very true in my life. I've ruined a few.
Yeah.
So, when did you get started with these old mountain curs?
I had the first one when I was just real young, way before even school age.
Okay.
Went to my uncle's on a Christmas and had a fit. He had a litter of pups. I had a fit for one, and I kept him about 14 years.
Okay.
And I was very sick at that age, had Bright's disease, and I don't know what all. And my parents let me bring him to the house. I treat cats on the curtain with him.
Got an early education.
Yeah. Yeah, we always had old cur dogs on the farm. They'd do anything we wanted them to do. When you let them run loose one-on-one, they get as smart as people.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that. And honestly, I wish I could let my dogs run loose. I think a lot of guys do.
Yeah, them days are gone.
Unfortunately for most of us.
I kept them till I went in the service, and I had 3 dogs, or my family did, running loose on the farm. And they got staying treat all the time. People knew it, and they just went to the tree and got them.
Gotcha.
And when I come back, I got the old rough dog. That's where I started with the registered
mountain
cur dogs.
Now, about what year was that?
That was in '67.
Okay. So is that when you started breeding your dogs?
Yeah, I'd always raise pups and give them away and everything. But shortly after that, I started breeding them because I was hunting for a living and had to have a lot of dogs.
What were you hunting?
We hunted a lot of wild boar, and you go out there and you get your pack cut up one day, and they're all tired and sore and injured. You got to have some freshened for the next day.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I can understand that. I've went hog hunting one time, and it's funny. They had 2 packs of dogs, and first pack ended up on a bear, and we had to go back and get the second pack and go run a hog with them.
Yeah. Yeah, we always patched them up. We got one cut. Mm-hmm. We just run it to the vet, get it fixed, and had their jugular veins cut and everything, and saved them. But
wow,
it's amazing how tough a dog is.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I've got a friend that's a vet, and she bear hunts, and some of the stories of bear dogs that she's patched up, and it's impressive what they can live through. Now, did you ever?
Yeah.
Now, did you ever hunt any other type of tree dogs besides mountain curs? Like,
I've always had one or two. I had an old Walker dog that I trained with old Rough, and he hunted like a cur dog. And that was the best of 2 worlds there, a cur and a hound together. Mm-hmm. That works out pretty good. Cur will shorten a race. A lot of people say they cheat. They'll go in and run to catch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that. That's why they always have that's why that old saying of "you want the fur, hunt a cur" is around.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll stop about anything and shorten the race. They won't just follow along behind a boar or bear and bark. They'll go in and stop him, turn him around.
Now, when you got started, you said you were, hunting hogs. Was that all you were hunting, or were you hunting anything else?
We hunted bear and bobcat and a little of everything.
Okay.
And then I'd hunt all day and then pleasure hunt, coon hunt that night.
Same dogs?
No, well, I have, but most of the time I'd have different ones.
Okay.
Like the old rough dog, I never did hog hunt him, and I was coming out of the woods with a man and a bobcat one day, and he said, I'd like to kill a couple of hogs, and it was a pouring rain, like you poured it out of a bucket, and I didn't want to go 10 miles and get another dog. And I seen the hogs cross the road, and I hissed old Rough a little, and we killed 2 hogs from him in 30 minutes or more.
Well, like Daryl said, versatility is why he liked the Kemmer dogs.
Yeah, you can teach them to do anything, or you can break them off of anything.
Mm-hmm. So I have leopards now, but I had some mountain curs and I had some tree curs, and overall, I would say they were probably easier to break and easier to train.
Yeah, they got a head full of sense.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I think that's what makes them such a good winded dog. They got a good nose on them. They got enough brains to use it.
Mm-hmm. Nope, I would agree with that. I've done my fair share of coon hunting with a pretty good mountain cur female back when I lived in Ohio, and a lot of it was just the fact that she was smart.
Yeah, Ohio used to be my best market. Back in about the 80s, coon hides expensive up there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I bet.
And I'd go to the Kenton National swim race and field trial.
I've heard all kinds of stories
about that place. People there from everywhere grabbing my pups.
Like I said, I've heard all kinds of stories about that place. Good and bad.
They're all true.
So, when did you start the KSBA, which is the Kemmer Stock Breeders Association?
September of 91.
What was your reasoning for doing that?
Well, just to tell you like it is, I had been in the original mountain curs for 18, 19 years, and there was so much jealousy in there that I always tried to have the best and do the most and everything. There's so much jealousy. 90% of them hated me, and everybody connected with me.
Gotcha.
And Calvin Boutique started writing a column just to people that had my dogs, and they had a column in Full Cry a long time before we ever had an organization.
Okay. And
the people that had my dogs are the ones that wanted to start it, and they said at that time 85% of them in the computer was my bloodline. And they just wanted to get away from that.
Gotcha.
We had an old gentleman that done the papers with a typewriter back then. And it got too big. And I raffled off a pup. And they brought $2,250. And it was a full brother to Gold Nugget JR.
Okay.
Out of Gold Nugget and Blondie 3. And we put that down on the computer, and then other people got to helping me, and we bought the computer and everything, and hired a girl up in Wisconsin to type it in, and started on the computer.
There you go. You were
That
early
dog's name was
pioneers.
Old Prize. Huh?
I said you were early pioneers in the computerizing it and everything.
Yeah, we had a man up there that was real good with them, and of course we used him like a borrowed mule, and he'd come down here in his station wagon, get it full of paper, and go up there and type it back in. It took a long time.
I bet it's a lot quicker now.
Yeah, ain't no telling how many's in there now.
So you mentioned a couple of dogs just right in that statement, and plus when you were telling the story of Old Rough, a couple of the big names that you've had through the years. Why don't you tell us about a couple of your, the real notable dogs that you've line bred on and that have made a big impact in the breed?
Well, we'll start with old Tennessee Mountain Blondie. I think she was the greatest reproducer in the cur dog world that's ever been. And we're working on that bloodline today. I've got a good friend in North Carolina that had a terrible car wreck about 11 years ago or 12 and put him out of commission. But he had a lot of old dogs, and every one of them was 50% Tennessee Mountain Blondie.
Okay.
And he's still got them today. His name is Ben Lawless.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to give him credit for saving the second round of the Blondie blood, because they just about was all gone. And he had saved them, and we've been working on them and got a litter that's right now coming a year old, and he has saved them. Looks like.
Wow, that's awesome.
We found one female. He had a bunch of males, and we found one female. Our buddies up in Virginia and Kentucky there owned one, and we got her and brought her down there and bred her to Ben's dog. And the day the pups was 5 weeks old, she ate a plastic water bucket and died.
Oh, that's a terrible loss.
And if anybody got one that's 50% Tennessee Mountain Blondie, I'd like to see them bred to one of Ben's dogs.
Like you said, I mean, I'm sure there's not too many of them still left around, unless someone's been very intentional, especially that you don't know about.
Yeah, see, she never was 3/4 or nothing. Okay. Back then, inbreeding wasn't all that popular, and I never did 3/4 her. A bad mistake. Mm-hmm. But so 50% is the best we could get if she was alive.
Yeah.
And then, of course, she was mother of Gold Nugget and Blondie too. That was two of her favorites. And Daryl's dog, Striker, was out of that pair, out of two litter mates.
I didn't realize they were litter mates.
And then they had another brother, was Yellow Bob, and he was bred to Blondie too, his litter mate. So Daryl had some of them out there, and I need to get with him someday. See if there's one anywhere in that country. Him and his brother had a lot of dogs out there because they hunted hard on big game, and they may be one tied in somebody's yard out there that we'd like to breed to.
Yeah, he told me he just had a litter out of striker semen.
Yeah.
The female is heavy striker bred female, like a multi-generation line bred female that was like a striker granddaughter multiple times or something like that. So while maybe not 50% Blondie blood, it would be fairly close by the sounds of it.
I'll tell you what would work, and I hope Daryl gets as excited about it as me and Ben Lawless. Them straws he's got. Mm-hmm. Bred to one of Lawless's young females. Mm-hmm. We would have it forever.
Yeah, no, definitely. I understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. There's there was a lot of them out here one time. The Kemmer dogs, and An old Target,
Mm-hmm.
buddy of mine took him and tuned him up and promoted him and took him to the World Hunt in a blizzard in Indiana. There's way over 100 dogs there, and he won that in a blizzard.
Wow.
That's Rodney Smith. He's as good a dog man's ever been.
Now, is he from where you, like, roughly close to you, or?
No, he's in Kentucky now.
Gotcha. I just wasn't sure if that dog was even used to hunting in snow. I know a lot of Kemmers, are dispersed throughout the South, so I wasn't sure if the dog was from the South or not.
Well, I sent him to Canada a little while, and he was used to it, but that didn't bother them. They'd hunt anywhere.
Good deal.
Show you an example. Darrell come here one time with old Striker, and we drawed out together with Target, the world champion, and Striker. I don't think Striker'd ever seen a coon in his life. And he just fell in there and looked like an old pro.
That's awesome. Now, through the years that you've been breeding these Kemmers, have you focused on breeding for coon dogs, for hog dogs, for squirrel dogs? I mean, was there any sort of focus for that, or were you just hunting a little bit of everything? Or
we have found out that they're all double cousins, and they will do anything you ask them to. People ask me all the time, if you know where I can get a pup that's bred for hogs or bred for coon or bred for squirrel, they'll do anything that you show them. Now, what squirrel dogs will do, these dogs can tree a squirrel, wind a squirrel, and tree it further than your shotgun can kill it. And if you want a squirrel dog, the squirrel will always be there. These dogs will wind them and just take you straight to the tree. They don't have to walk the logs and smell every stump and sift the sand and all that. They just wind them.
Yeah.
And they tree coon the same way. I've seen them, if a wind was blowing, would tree a coon several hundred yards. And if you'll just stop and shine, you'll see the coon's eye.
Nice.
And the people don't believe that. I tell them that, and they say, that dog's treeing the sight. See, that old man don't know what he's talking about.
I know something you also have been working on for a little while are the hybrids where you cross them with feist. When did you start doing that?
Well, I always done it all my life, but I never did call them that till, I don't know, 20 years ago or more.
Okay.
People got to want squirrel dogs or a smaller dog, that they can ride in the cab of their truck and go hunting, or keep them in the house and turn them out and they'll go tree something. A lot of people just like a smaller dog.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing it for years, and they've got all the qualities of the Kemmer Curs, just maybe in a smaller portion.
Okay, gotcha.
I sold one 2 or 3 weeks ago, and a day or two before he was 8 weeks old, a man tracked up a wounded deer and sent me a picture of him standing on that deer.
Dang. Start young, that's for sure.
Yeah. They're just programmed to track something.
Mm-hmm. Are you still raising and breeding both curs and hybrids then, or?
Yeah, we've got 2 litters of nice little hybrids here now. Got an old cur female going to happen any time. She looks like she's going to have 12 or 15.
Nice. Hopefully she has a nice big litter for you and she raises them all.
Yeah.
I was doing a little bit of research before we got to talking here tonight, and I stumbled across somebody's website, and they had your rules for breeding, and I found them kind of interesting. Would you care to go through them and tell us a little bit about them?
Well, yeah, I don't know that it's anything special, just You gotta make these cur dogs. You gotta make them love you to start with. You get a pup, I tell them to put it in their pocket, take it with them everywhere they go. And a lot of people think I'm a little nutty, but it works.
Hey, if it's worked for you for all these years, I'm sure it's the proof's in the pudding, and you're producing some dogs, some good dogs. So
Yeah. If you want to ruin one, put it in a pen with a self feeder, and you buy about once a week, throw some feed in that feeder, not handling, you got your cub.
mm-hmm.
If you'll make it your best friend and ride it around your truck, let the kid pull the hair off of it, it'll be the best buddy you ever had.
Yep. So what else do you look for when you're breeding dogs?
I gotta have a lot of grit and a lot of go power, go yonder, and super nose. You gotta have a good nose.
Well, you saying that kind of goes against what a lot of common thoughts are on curs. Pretty much a lot of people think cur dogs are hot-nosed, close hunting dogs. So you're saying you want a lot of nose and a lot of hunt.
Yeah.
So, we're going to stop you in the middle of your breeding rules here, but what kind of dogs are you, what style of dog do you like then? Like as far as hunt and nose, like what do you expect out of a dog?
Well, I expect them to have a nose good enough that they can tree a squirrel or a coon on top of a tree, and before they ever get to the tree.
Okay.
And if there's a little bit of breeze blowing, they'll almost stand up in the middle of the field out there on their back feet and walk around like something crazy, trying to get a little taller to see which way that breeze is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go tree it. And a lot of people have never seen that in their life. A dog that can and would do that.
Yeah. Now, like, how far out do your dogs hunt typically?
Most of the time, they just hunt hard in a half circle around you or something out in front of you.
Okay.
100 yards is a long ways in the woods. But then if they smell something there, they'll go wherever they have to catch you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was just curious.
And catch, that's the name of the game. They run to catch.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think they cheat and everything. They'll when they smell it, they'll drift and circle and do whatever they got to do to pick up the hot end and leave out.
Now, your dogs tend to be silent on track or open?
Very few of them are completely open, but if they get excited, they'll open here and there, and you know which way they went.
Okay. Well, I guess we can go back to your rules of breeding now that I interrupted you.
Most of all, you got to have grit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had a litter of pups of 6 or 8 weeks old. You show them a cage coon or something, they just pile all over that cage and try to tear it out. And it seems like they just programmed they'd rather have a coon as anything.
Okay.
So they got a nose, they got grit, and we never had no trouble with them hunting. They'll go hunting.
Now, with all that grit, you have a lot of problems with dogs being too gritty, getting killed, starting fights, anything like that?
You mean fights with other dogs?
Yeah.
No, they're not gritty in that way.
I've heard of other breeds and stuff where when grit's been a focus, it eventually kind of crosses that line to where sometimes a little too much grit equals dog aggression, or a little too much grit equals a suicidal dog on a bear or on a boar or on a lion, something like that, especially on big game. It's not really something that happens with coon hunting as much, but
well, they've got to have brains too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that got hog dogs don't like my dogs because I always wanted one to stop the hog, was grabbing him in a dead run in the rear end and spin him around. And when the hog stops, they're on the other side of him.
Okay.
And I don't want them to go in and get him by the ear, and they get him by the ear and stand out in front of him, that hog. All he got to do is just stand there and cut their guts out.
Mm-hmm.
But if they'll stop it and be on the other side when the hog stops, going in and getting them caught, now to me, that's the bulldog's job.
Yeah.
And these dogs don't do that well because they just be all over their head if they even tried it, and they wouldn't live long.
Okay.
But I've never wanted a catch dog in these dogs.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And as far as aggressive towards other dogs and everything, what makes an old male dog aggressive is if you got 2 or 3 males and you're breeding one and not the others and everything, they develop a hate for them others. You got to watch how you handle them at home.
Interesting. Never heard that, but
if you put them in a kennel next to one another, like with a war between them, they might just tear a hole in and get a hold of the other because of something he done. He developed a hate for.
I've seen that happen with some.
They're just like humans.
I said I've seen that happen. Actually, a buddy of mine had a father and son had been living in pens next to each other their entire lives, and then I don't know, the dad was 9 or 10 years old, and the son was like 6, and all of a sudden one day, those two decided they hated each other, tried to kill each other.
Yeah.
Through the pen. And
yeah. Yeah, they'll do it even across the yard. They'll see one another over there. Someday one of the other will break a chain or however you keep them.
Mm-hmm.
If you're breeding one, not breeding the other or something, they develop a jealousy.
So what else are you looking for when you're breeding dogs?
What else?
Anything else, or is that about it?
Well, I want them with a handle on them.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to come and check in with me every little bit. If they're not on a track, I want them to come and see about me.
Okay.
And I've had them more than a dozen. I used to like to walk old log roads in the woods, and eventually that road will fork. And I've seen them dogs come back and stand at that fork to see which fork I was going to take.
Okay.
And then they would go that way hunt.
Good deal.
And then they go in a straight line, and you have to look for them. I never had a tracking collar. And if you lose your dog every time you take them or something, I don't want them dogs.
Mm-hmm.
They got to have brains.
I think that's common with a lot of guys that run cur dogs. That's what they like. The allure of a cur dog over a hound is the handle and the brains. From most guys that I've talked to, or most of what I've read.
Yeah.
I would say I'm kind of in that boat. That's why I run leopards. I float that middle ground. They're kind of a cur dog.
Yeah.
Even though the UKC says they're hounds.
And I guess in the dictionary or wherever they describe a cur dog as being a mutt or whatever,
mm-hmm.
Maybe 200 years ago, a cur dog might have been from a farm shepherd that herded the cows and an old bulldog that caught the hogs, and that's where they got the hot nose and the ill temper and everything. But these are different altogether. They've been bred for 100 years to be hunters.
Yep.
There's a book out that's called Cumberland County's First 100 Years.
Okay.
People used to go from the east towards the west, and they'd cross through here, and they'd tie a tree to their wagon and go down them hills. The tree would hold them back. Well, one family had a terrible wagon wreck here in Grassy Cove and killed their mule, all but one, and they had to settle here, and their offspring is still here, friends of mine.
Okay.
And They're Fords, and they got here about 3 years before the Kemmers. And anyway, they had to settle here in this valley with a pair of brindle bobtail dogs. And one of them's name was Dinwiddie, after the governor of Virginia. And them dogs, the brindle color, produce both black and yellow and brindle.
Mm-hmm.
And the same old dogs are still here.
Yep. So you mentioned the color. Most Kemmers that I see are yellow, but you do occasionally see brindle and black. Is there any other colors that you are out there as far as Kemmers?
No, not in my breed.
Okay.
There used to be some blue ones. You know, our war hero, Sergeant York's family, brought some blue ones in this country. Back when he come home from the war, I guess, and the blue ones produce the chocolates, and I don't have any of that. It's in the original Mountain Cur.
Mm-hmm. I've hunted with a fair amount of Mountain Curs. I've only ever hunted with one Kemmer, and I was actually looking to buy the dog. He was owned by a dog trader, basically, and the guy who had owned him prior had passed away, and so the trader that owned him didn't really know much about him, and he had some issues that I chose not to take on, which I'm not saying it was the dog, like you said. I'm sure handler was the main issue that created those issues. So that's the only Kemmer I've ever hunted. So, but I've hunted with quite a few Mountain Curs, and so I'm very familiar with the breed, and I've hunted with quite a few blue ones actually.
Blue ones, Mountain Cur or leopards?
Yeah, Mountain Curs.
Yeah. Buddy of mine in Kentucky, Dave Glazebrook, he liked the blue ones, and he's like me, he's getting too old to have a lot of dogs now, but he specialized in them blue ones for years, and
okay,
and there's still a few around.
Mm-hmm.
But talking about the leopard curs, you may or may not know this. There was some leopard breeder. I had my old target dog up in Canada,
mm-hmm.
being hunted, and they would take leopard dogs to Canada and breed to him. And some of them would come reddish, dark yellow.
Yep.
And they actually started a new breed with them, called them Kemmer Curs.
Oh, I thought those were the Canadian Curs up there that got started with Kemmers cross leopards.
They did. They bred him to everything up there. That's what started the Canadian Curs.
Yeah, because I read
and the Kemmers.
A big history on the Canadian Cur, and I mean, I think the first two dogs was actually, like you kind of said, it was a border collie and a German short hair. They bred those two together, then they inbred those pups, culled really hard, and then when they started outcrossing to Kemmers and leopards, if I remember correctly. But I saw some pictures of some of those Canadian Curs, and they are exactly what you're saying. They were like a brownish leopard color.
There was a man passed through here one night, and he called me and asked me if I had a dog named Target. I told him I did, and I finally wanted to know why he was asking all these questions, and he said, well, I just bought me a dog and went and tried him out. He had the best nose I ever seen on a dog, and I asked the breeder where that nose come from. They said it come out of that old Target dog of Kemmers.
Okay.
And, I ain't going to say a whole lot more because the gentleman's dead, but they kept a road hot of breeding, running dogs from South Carolina to Canada.
Gotcha. So what's the future look like for the KSBA?
What's the future?
Mm-hmm.
I wish I knew.
I mean, I'm saying, like, when you pass away, is the KSBA going to close up shop, or do you think it'll keep on rolling? And
it's going to close up shop. there's not enough hunters and interested people anymore that care about keeping them pure.
Gotcha.
And biggest mistake I ever made was having a KSBA.
Why do you say that?
Well, see, when they wanted to break off from original Mountain Cur, I started to set up my own register and register them everything because I just had enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a Toyota pickup full of papers, and the day that we had a get together here, and I was going to start registering them. My daughter was going to register them and everything, and some of the people that had the dogs said, we'd like to buy you out and have association, and we got to have the registers and all of that, so I give in. Well, we were going to be good old boys, and we let the original Mountain Curs, some of them in, because they were having a lot of problems, and they wanted some place to register theirs, and we let them in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had to start getting them out because they brought walkers with their tails cut off, half bulldogs, Weimaraners, and everything, and they didn't want a breed club. My idea was to keep them bred, pure, and everything, and they wanted a hunt club.
Okay.
You know, they'll do anything in the world. A lot of people, now I'm not talking about everybody, a lot of people will do anything to get a $3 trophy so they can sell more pups.
Gotcha.
And they just made a mess out of it in a hurry.
I think there's still quite a bit of infighting over there, over that same issue. From the outside.
Over in the original?
Yeah, just from the outside looking in.
Yeah, they all hate me over there, and they wouldn't 5 people in that whole club know me if I walked in the clubhouse, because I've not been there in 30 years. But they've heard from the old timers what a sorry rascal I am.
Gotcha. So if you could do it over again, what would you do?
I would set me up a register and register them and keep them pure and know what went in them. And if people wanted them, they could get them, and then they could go register them in KC, UKC, wherever. But I wouldn't let no junk in them.
Gotcha.
I made a lot of enemies. I made a lot of my friends mad at me because, they buy a pup in good faith and find out someday that it's not the real thing. And no matter what I do, see, but there's always been 2 sides.
Mm-hmm.
And damn for do and damn for don't. I'm going to be a bad guy either way.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to keep my mouth shut and let the board of directors and everything handle it, because, like I tell them, I've been fighting this junk since 73.
Gotcha.
Speaking of the original Mountain Cur, I got to tell you this story. You probably heard of the 7/8 gold nuggets.
No, I can't say I have.
We kept inbreeding gold nugget right on down to his daughters till we got them up to 7/8. There never was but 2 females bred out of gold nugget himself. We had a lot of 7/8 gold nuggets, but 7/8 bred to 7/8 and all that, but he never produced but 2 females. And I had one here I thought was the grandest thing since sliced bread. Rodney Smith had just won that big world hunt with Target.
Mm-hmm.
He come down here, and me and him and 2 or 3 more went down to my kennel, and that female was in there, and we said, now we're going to breed her tomorrow to Target. I went down there the next morning, took old Target down there to breed that female, and there was 5 gates and doors open, and she was gone.
Whoa.
And somebody went in there that night and got her. And it took me 10.5 years to figure out who it was.
Mm-mm.
Old boy that used to come to my house every weekend, and I'd pretty much let him have whatever he wanted. He wanted the female to breed to his neighbor's dog. I was going to get him one, but I wasn't going to give him that one.
Yeah.
And she disappeared. Bred her to his neighbor's big old brindle dog, raised some fine pups, but she ended up with phony original Mountain Cur papers on her.
Mm-mm.
And the blood is still in there today.
Crazy. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to explain a little bit more about these Kemmers to me. Like I said, other than talking to Daryl, I really didn't know too much about them, so I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me tonight.
Well, it couldn't exist or wouldn't have existed all these years without people like Daryl and Bill, his brother, and all their boys, and old Rodney Smith and them people that promoted them and everything. And now Calvin, he's raising some of this bloodline in his Cajun squirrel dogs, and they just, a lot of people are helping.
Mm-hmm.
It's stuff I couldn't do all by myself, but I want you to keep an eye on Ben Lawless. He goes by Zane Lawson on the Facebook, but now he's going to be the savior of the, like I say, the second round of these Curs.
Gotcha. Well, I'll definitely keep an eye out.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.